Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Speak On It. I'm your boy, R.W. Coolins. First and foremost, giving honor to God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. Appreciate everybody tuning in this morning. Let's go ahead and get these formalities out the way. 844-904-2665. That's 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. All we ask is say what you mean what you say. We come as friends, we leave as family. Leave as family. That's what we do here on the Speak On the Show every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. We're broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook this morning. Hopefully everybody's got a good connection this morning and everything. So, and I'm R.W. Coolins. Let's put formalities out there. I'm R.W. Coolins, your normal host, your every Saturday host. And let me rehash something real quick. Last week, we did Soul Sessions, a Black man's perspective. Week before, we did Soul Sessions, a Black woman's perspective. I think both conversations were very good panelists on, and we had some good in-depth conversation. So we're going to continue that going. Anybody that wants to be a part of any of those panels, rwcoolins@yahoo.com. rwcoolins@yahoo.com. Shoot me an email or send me a message through Messenger or Facebook or any of the social media platforms, RW Coolins over all those. Let me know you want to be a part of the conversation. We'll get you in there. All right. So that's what we do here on the Speak On It show. Soul Sessions, a Black man's / a Black woman's perspective. We have those panels and we're going to continue doing different conversations, different topics, and we're going to continue moving in that direction. James Battle, good morning, my brother. Good morning. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so that's where we're at this morning, man. So let's go ahead and get into this. It's Saturday, y'all. It's Saturday. Long week, but let's do what we need to do. Let's get this information out. Can I vote? www.nass.org. And I'm gonna tell y'all why I'm talking about this morning. Can I vote? www.nass.org. Can I vote? Go in there. These are the screens. You go in the website, go through the formalities, get up to, this is the most important part. Select your state, then go into, after you select your state, put your information in, all your information, make sure it's correct. We got an election coming up at the end of this year, November. Don't wait till the last minute. Make sure your information is correct. We got some things that are on the line, some things that are very important that we need to be a part of in this voting process at this time around. So make sure you go in. Can I vote? www.nass.org. Now, let me tell you why I bring this up. I seen an article, and I wish I would have downloaded it, but I seen an article, I think it was last week, that mentioned that in certain states in this United States of America, they are going out, the legislatures, Republican legislatures, are going out and they are taking voters off the voting rolls. And what they're saying is, their justification is, if you didn't vote or you haven't voted in a year, in the last election, or anything like that, they're taking people off the rolls even though you think that you're registered to vote. You need to make sure that you're on this. What they're doing is they're trying to take as many people off these rolls to make an impact in this next election. Pay attention to what's going on. Get out there. Make sure you're able to vote. Talk to people. Talk to each other. Not just about who won the game last night. Ask them, are you registered to vote? Are you sure everything is up to date as far as where you can vote, where your polls are, all those different things? Because there's a lot of chess. There's a lot of chess being played by some people in our political process to minimize the impact of your vote by either removing you from the rolls of being able to vote or minimizing the fact of whether your vote is going to count. Get out there, make sure you find out if you're eligible, if you're registered the correct way, and are you registered to the correct party, independent, Republican, Democrat, whatever you may be. Make sure you're registered to vote, because eventually what I see while they're out here eliminating people's names off these rolls that should be able to vote, which voting is a right, they're eliminating these people off these rolls. There's one long-term goal to put it where as minimum amount of people vote the better chance of of a political party winning the elections. It's what it is. The only one that's not just by the popular vote is the president of the United States, and it goes by the electoral college. However, your vote still counts because it goes towards how many electoral college votes that they get in that state. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but I just want to touch on that. Make sure that you, your family members, your friends, make sure all of y'all are registered the same way. Make sure everything is correct in how you're going to vote. Now let me get off my soapbox. It's a straight talk, no chaser Saturday, y'all. Straight talk, no chaser. And we just gonna go ahead and jump into this now because I know y'all want to talk about this. Let's go. So yesterday, we've been having this thing going on about Fani Willis in Georgia and whether she is going to be able to stay on to prosecute the Donald Trump and the other defendants in the Georgia election interference case or not. And the judge came down yesterday and said she had one of two options. She could either remove herself or she had to remove Mr. Wade. Mr. Wade decided after the fact, after the judge made his decision, he resigned. He did his resignation letter. She accepted it in the discussion as far as that. Did she make a mistake? The judge in his report from it, or what his ruling was that there could have been a conflict of interest, but there was nothing that they could find where they lied about the relationship or the person that they had come on the stand couldn't justify or couldn't really pinpoint when it started, when the relationship started, and all these things we were hearing about. He kind of debunked some, but he did harshly, and I'm gonna say harshly, use words towards Miss Fani Willis about her relationship and the things that are going on and what went on with that, and something along the lines of what we said, what the women said on our panel in the Black women's perspective and everything. It was that it was a bad decision at a bad time. That's just what it comes down to. Now that Mr. Wade is removed, now it's Fani Willis and the rest of the people trying to get this into the court, get this to trial, so we can find out exactly if they will be prosecuted for what they did in Georgia. That's what it is. It is what it is. Willis Cheney, good morning, my brother. Good morning. Appreciate you. So now that the case is able to move forward, here come the other things. Now they're throwing all these other things out there where they think Fani Willis should be removed. Brian Kemp yesterday in Georgia said that, he reenacted something about they can remove a district attorney if they don't feel the district attorney is doing what they're supposed to be doing, blah, 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 and all these things. So all these other things are coming to the forefront now because of what the judge decided and all the things that went on with this case. As Fani Willis said, she wasn't on trial. She was not the one on trial, but they made it seem like she was on trial for a decision that she made. Let's just be real. But here's the thing. They don't want her to be the one to prosecute because what they're trying to do is get rid of the case altogether. We've all read it. We've all seen it. They're trying to get rid of the case altogether in Georgia. They're looking for loopholes. They tried to go for her. She's still on the case because if they took her off the case, then they would have to find someone else to come in and they would have to go through all the probably would have to sit another grand jury, so on and so forth, all the process that they had to go through before they would have to do again. So she's there. You don't have to start over, but there's some things that they're going to have to do now that Mr. Wade is gone. However, in that being said, there's a lot of things that now they're throwing at her to get her removed or get the case thrown out completely because of what went on with her and Mr. Wade. Now, this is one of the first times in my life, and I'll say for me, I don't know anybody else out there, that I've seen anything like this against a district attorney trying the case, where they try to do anything and everything to get rid of the person that's trying the case. One of the things that I noticed, and I found this article yesterday, they're so pinpointed on Fani Willis and her relationship that she had, whether it started before or after she put Mr. Wade on the thing. But this article I found by Kathleen Cullerton, and she says this: make it make sense. Clarence Thomas targeted amid demands for Fani Willis recusal. calls for Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis to recuse herself from the Georgia election racketeering case against Donald Trump spurred one name to trend on X on Friday, Clarence Thomas. The Supreme Court justice, beleaguered by reports that he accepted luxury gifts from political operatives and that his wife, Jenny, through her support behind Trump's Stop the Steal campaign, took center stage as X-users questioned his ability to rule on cases involving the former president. Clarence Thomas took decades of bribes from a billionaire, wrote a Democratic political strategist, Lindy Lee. And you guys want Fonnie Willis, who did nothing wrong, to recuse herself from this case. Now, let me stop right there before I read any further, because I don't like to do comparisons, but these are facts. And the fact of it is this: while they were so hell bent on removing Fonnie Willis from this case, that was a slam dunk as far as prosecuting these people for what they did in Georgia. No one is speaking up from either side of the aisle about Clarence Thomas and all the years, this is what I'm saying now, all the years that he has been taking gifts, money, loans that he didn't have to pay back per se, all the things that Clarence Thomas has received from these political operatives over all these years, there's silence. The other fact that his wife had buses driving people into DC, into Washington, DC for the January 6th Stop the Steal speech, but he is still able to be on these cases that deal with Donald Trump. But no one sees an issue with this at the hierarchy of our political government. This is where that two-tiered system that they want to talk about comes into play. Fonnie Willis was elected into her position by the people of Georgia. Let me say that again. Fonnie Willis was elected into the position that she's in by the people of Georgia, Fulton County to be exact. Clarence Thomas was put in this position of a lifetime position by a president. All Supreme Court justices are. But there's no ethics. There's no ethics and no rules from what we've seen for these judges in the positions that there are at the Supreme Court level to hold them accountable for anything they do that is ethically wrong, unethical, if you want to say it. So here's where the water gets muddy for a lot of us, because we sit back and we see these double standards. We see how these things work. Now, I want everybody to know this. In no way am I defending the choices that Fonnie Willis made. That was a personal choice that she made. She didn't benefit from it. She put him on because he was the most qualified person, because the one person that she asked, who was a former district attorney, didn't want to take on the case. So she appointed him. And they tried to say that the money that he was being paid was benefiting her. They said that he was benefiting long hours. And let me stop right there. Let me digress for a minute. Because I seen where Ashley Merchant, the defense attorney for Mr. Roman in this case, when she was sitting in front of the legislature talking about this, she actually, one of the people in the legislature, which happened to be a black man, African-American male, brought up the point that Miss Merchant tried to put in her argument that Fonnie Willis and Mr. Wade were charging exuberant amounts of money for this case for financial gain. But the question he asked is, wait a minute. This is the African-American legislature. He asked the question to her of, wait a minute. You're saying that they were stacking money, stacking hours and everything, but your client was offered a plea deal. You refused the plea deal. So how can you say that they're stacking money off of hours for what they're doing for the case when your client's case could have been over and done with if you had taken the plea deal? She got quiet because there was no excuse for what she was saying. What she was saying was basically, they're taking money, but you're part of the problem, Ms. Merchant, for them taking the money because you told your client not to take a plea deal. So now they still had to continue working on his case. See the hypocrisy there? The hypocrisy there. But let me go back. When we talk about Clarence Thomas and these millionaires that he's been taking money from. Someone paid off his son's tuition, his grandson's tuition that he calls a son. He had an RV that he bought that someone paid off. They paid off his mom's home in Georgia, and he never paid a dime back. But we're concerned about Fonnie Willis and a relationship, but we're not concerned about Clarence Thomas and the money trail. How many cases has Clarence Thomas ruled on that had to do with these billionaires and their political affiliation and what their best interest is in what goes on in this country? Remember, Clarence Thomas has been on the Supreme Court, as longest serving Supreme Court justice ever. But he's been on there at least, I think it's 30, close to 40 years. He's been on the Supreme Court. Think about all the cases he's listened to. Think about all the cases he's ruled on as a Supreme Court justice. And then think about all the money that he's made off these political operatives that have greased his pockets, not financially per se, just giving them the money, but in trips, cruises, yachts, being on yachts for weeks, being allowed to use their cabins or their what they call them, weekend homes, all those different things he's benefited from. And that's just the one part. Let's go to the other part where his wife, who was questioned by the January 6th committee, admitted that she was part of Stop the Steal, admitted that she bust people in, admitted that she was trying to keep Trump in power, but there's no consequences held against her or him. So when we look at these things that are going on in our political system, and we talk about, and you hear me talking about it on this show all the time, where we have people that have served 30, 40 years in jail who didn't commit the crime, and then they're exonerated, and they think we should celebrate because they've been sent home for something they did not do. But then we see this, where Fonnie Willis is a villain because she's trying to form a president for a crime he committed, allegedly. But Clarence Thomas, who they like, is able to continue doing what he's doing, benefiting and profiting, not off of who he is, but because of where he sits. Because of where he sits. Brian Hoodie, good morning. That's where, for me, that's why I tell you guys, and I continue to put up here, can I vote? www.nass.org. Not that you're going to vote for the Supreme Court justice, but you're going to vote for the person who's going to have the decision making to put a Supreme Court justice on the bench for a lifetime appointment, which probably needs to be looked at as well, because we have term limits for congressmen, senators, president, none for Supreme Court justices who rule for or against anything brought to them that deals with our livelihood in the big scope of things. Let's just think about it. Abortion rights, affirmative action. And we'll get into that a little later. These are the things that they rule on. And they have lifetime appointments. So it says Lee alone was not calling out Thomas after ruling from Judge Scott McAfee on Friday. And Willis can remain on the case if Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade steps aside, which he did. This spurred some legal experts to suggest she recuse herself for the good of the case. So they want her to recuse herself for the good of the case, but nobody wants Clarence Thomas to recuse himself. There's no big push for him to recuse himself from these cases that he's ruling on. Case in point, in the next couple of weeks, sometime in April, I think it is, they're going to rule on presidential immunity for Donald Trump, as far as whether he should have presidential immunity for all the things that he did while in office. And he tried to push it to the point of asking for presidential immunity for the Stormy Daniels case, which he was not president when he paid her off. But he tried. And they listened. Would they listen to you? Yeah. So it says here, these are people that posted on X after this was on there. It says, okay, let me get this straight, wrote X user Republicans Against MAGA. It was ruled Fonnie Willis displayed the appearance of impropriety because of an affair. But Clarence Thomas can accept lavish gifts of 38 vacations, 26 private jet flights, VIP tickets, and luxury resorts. I have a problem with what he said with one thing. She did not have an affair. She did not have an affair. And that's where, semantics come into play. But that's what they want you to believe. She did not have an affair. Let's clear that up. So that's where we're at with that. That's in the news. Mr. Wade has stepped aside. Fonnie Willis is still on the case. It can proceed going forward. There's going to be a lot of motions put in. They've already pushed back already, saying that they're going to appeal his decision, which will go. So if you notice, everything that's dealing with Donald Trump is delay. They're trying to delay everything. If you don't know, they're trying to delay everything until up to election season, because they feel if they have the trial during election season, that it's election interference. I'm trying to figure out, and this is just me, I'm trying to figure out why in this country, a person that decides to put his hat in the ring for a political office cannot be tried for crimes that they've done in spite of. If I'm trying to go to another job, or I'm trying to get a promotion somewhere, if I've done a crime or I've been alleged of doing a crime, do you think they're going to hold my case off until everything goes through with me finding out whether I got another job or finding out whether I'm moving to another position or maybe I'm moving to another state? Do you really think they're going to put off sentencing me or putting me on trial because I have other things going on? Do you think they're going to continue to delay things because I got to go out here and campaign? When and where does this come into play where it's okay? Only when certain people are the ones who are being prosecuted. Abel Whedon, good morning, sis. Good morning. Appreciate you. John Chaney, depends on your complexion. Exact. Complexion for the protection. Appreciate that, my brother. And that's what it comes down to. And I seen something the other day, and I'm a caveat here, digress a little bit. I seen something the other day that mentioned us and racism. And why do we make everything about race? And the answer is said in there was that we don't make everything about race. Everything has been predicated on race. All we're doing is reacting to what has been already planted in the soil. So when you ask a person, why is everything based on race? Because unless you know my experiences and my trials and my tribulations that I've been through because of my Black person, African-American person, race is always at the forefront. Race is in the forefront of every conversation of everything we do in this country. If you really think about it, if you want to go there, let's talk about the border. It has nothing to do with immigration. It has to do with the race of the people that are trying to get asylum in this country. You don't see them stopping planes coming from Europe. You don't see them stopping planes coming from Asia. They're only concerned about the people trying to come into the country across the southern border. There's people coming in from Canada every day. There's people coming in from Europe every day. There's people coming in from Asia every day. But the southern border, that's the issue. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. Pay attention, people. Pay attention. Josh Boyd, good morning, my brother. Good morning. Appreciate you. So this one I seen, I laughed. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie to you. Y'all family. I can talk to you. I laughed at first, but then reality hit me that we can't, as much as we want to look down or feel badly towards people that look like us that decide that they want to go and vote the other way or they're staunch Trump for Black and everything like that. we have to step back for a minute and say, you know what, we don't understand what their mindset is and everything like that. And we shouldn't judge per se. We shouldn't judge. But I laughed at this at first, and then I had to regroup because it was a conversation, part of the conversation we had last week on the men's thing. And it says a gay black Republican is going to release receipts on MAGA. A gay black Republican is going to release receipts on the MAGA movement. It says a gay and black Republican influencer who accused conservatives of shouting slurs at him at an event last year said he may release receipts on MAGA. Rob Smith, an Army veteran, shared a video on social media in December that he said showed him at an event in Phoenix being confronted and surrounded by some white supremacists that don't like gays or blacks in the Republican Party. He said the group hurled racist and homophobic slurs at him, and he later told CNN he was a victim of a hate crime. Now, just reading that, I kind of, under my breath, y'all, I didn't just outright, I didn't do that. But under my breath, I kind of like, you know how we do. But then I had to pause for a minute, and I'll tell you why. No matter your sexual preference, no matter your skin tone, no matter what your demographic is, no matter where you come from, any discrimination should not happen. The reason we laugh and the reason I laugh, let me just put it in my terms, and the reason we may laugh at this is a gay black Republican vote in the Republican Party, being Republican, is that everything about him, the party is against. That's where the chuckle came from. Being gay, they're against. Being African American, they're against. The only time that they embrace you as being an African American is during election season in the Republican Party. And this is my opinion and my opinion only. Because I read enough to know. I watch enough videos to know that you are nothing but a vote to them during election season. And then once election season is over, you're just that guy. But this guy, on March 14th, Smith called out conservative pundits for not reaching out to him to share his story, accusing the MAGA movement of cult behavior for being upset with him over the CNN interview. He also responded to a critic who suggested it may have been Democrats behind the slurs. There we go. So he's at a Republican Party rally, but then someone chimes in, well, it was probably Democrats. Really? Those people were not pretend Republicans or Antifa types. They were all involved with @RN Renewal and direct ties to other organizations. And I have many more receipts to back it up, which will be released in the coming weeks, Smith wrote in his post to X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter. Smith said the slurs were made in an event hosted by Republicans for National Renewal, a conservative advocacy group. The identities of those seen in the video shouting slurs at Smith remain unknown. And it has not been confirmed that the advocacy group was involved. See how they distanced themselves from that. When an ex-user said they would look into who supports the group's 501c4, referring to the tax code designation for social welfare organizations, Smith said it would be very interesting to look into that, adding that he may have information about the individuals he said harassed him. In fact, I may have had someone doing just that. I may have had someone looking into lots of things about those who participated in the harassment, some of who really don't need any legal trouble, Smith wrote. Let me stop there for a minute. I don't know, Mr. Smith, but I am going to say this. Did you do your research before you went to this rally or this, whatever it was? Because you're doing a lot of research after the fact. You're saying you're going to pull receipts. You should have pulled receipts before you even thought about going there to find out where you were going and what you were walking into. What were you walking into? You know, there's one thing for us to feel a certain way about supporting things. But do you do your research about what you're supporting? Do you do your research about whether you're even invited or accepted into where you're talking about going? I blame not only the people who harassed him or called him out his name through the slur, I blame him. And I know you're not supposed to blame the victim. However, you got to know where you're going. You got to know what you're a part of. You got to know where you're accepted. Why go somewhere where you're not accepted? Tommy Dorsey, not quite sure why he is surprised by the Republican Party. Interesting. Thank you, bro. I couldn't have said it no better. I get hyped up. I can't get the words out, but thank you. That's what I'm saying. Why would you think that going into a place where you're not wanted, or where you think you're wanted, but you don't know you're wanted because you didn't do the research to see if you're even invited into a space like that? Who does that? Who does that? Tell me, that was exactly what Brother Rodney, why I speak out now. Yeah, exactly. See, this is where, when I hear these people talking about blacks for Trump and talking about buying the shoes and wearing T-shirts, and these celebrities like the Fat Joes and the Snoop Dogs and all these people talking about they support Trump and everything, you're going into spaces that you're not even welcome into. You're talking about being in spaces that they don't want you in, only because now it's election season. Now, let me clear this up real quick when I say this. I don't agree with everything the Democratic Party does. I don't agree with probably 75% of what the Republican Party does. But as we talked about last week, there's two sides to the coin, two sides. And I have to look at both sides to make a conscious decision on what I want to do and what's going to benefit me, my family, and those that look like me in this country at this time. But I'll be damned if I'm going to take that 75% and push it aside for the 25% to go into a space that I know I'm not welcome. I may not be welcome in those spaces, 75% of it, as far as my thinking. But the 25% I look at, I may not want to go in those spaces, but I may agree with what their ideology is on certain issues. Now, you may not agree, but at the end of the day, why would you go in a space that they don't want you in? What I don't get is when I hear these African Americans speak about Donald Trump and speak about the Republican Party, knowing, and then they go back. This is their retort. Well, the Democratic Party started the KKK. Revisionist history is what I call it. The Democratic Party, the Democratic Party were the KKK back in the day. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a Republican. Compare the Republican Party then to the Republican Party now, and tell me, do you think, and I don't want to speak for him, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would be a Republican? Do you think that just because you say that at one time in our history, in this country's history, the KKK was more of the Democratic Party than it was the Republican Party, when you have more white nationalist, white supremacist movements in this country, in the history of this country right now, that all support the Republican Party? Which one do you think I'm going to pay more attention to? Revisionist history or the current day? Mr. Smith, I'm going to say it this way. I'm sorry, y'all. Mr. Smith and Fonnie Willis, not to compare them, not to put them in the same category, but they both made bad decisions. As African Americans, they both made bad decisions. And I say they made bad decisions in the point that he went into a space he knew he should have been into. She went into a relationship she shouldn't have at the time when she's doing what she needs to do to prosecute certain people. Bad decisions. Every day you wake up, they tell you all the time, every day you wake up, you got choices and you got a chance. You got a chance to make the day great, and you got a choice on how you decide to do it. Choices and chances, chances and choices. And without, good morning, little brother. Appreciate you, my brother. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. But Mr. Smith made a bad decision. Now, I'm not saying he made a bad decision just that day. I'm saying he made a bad decision overall, because if he would look and listen to the Republican Party and what their message is, he fits nowhere into what they're talking about. Number one, he's gay. Number two, he's black, African American. What in your mind will make you think that they will want you there? What? Mm. This is what he also said. Following the incident, Smith said he was in Phoenix for Turning Point USA's America Fest, another place. I don't know why he's there. In the caption of the video he posted to X on December 18th, he wrote, "Last night in Phoenix, I was confronted and surrounded by some white supremacists that don't like gays or blacks in the Republican Party." Newsflash. Excuse me. They shouted the N-word and they called him the slur for gay, homosexual, at me to make their point. However, now this right here, listen to this now. However, I served in Iraq. I never back down, ever. Let me tell you something. And this is for anybody out there. I used to think that me serving in the military and my military background and my military service to this country meant something to everyone on a whole in this country. But once you're out and you're living your life outside of the uniform and nobody sees the uniform that you wore or what you did while you was in or all the accolades, anything like that, nah, bruh. Nah. You ain't nobody. You're nobody. They don't care how much you served. They don't care if you took a bullet. They don't care if you lost a limb. They don't care what you did while you served, being a veteran. They don't care. Because of the melanin content of your skin, they could give a damn. Because most of the people, and I'll say this, most of the people who you hear with this, they're patriots, they're this and that, have never served this country in a military uniform. But they call themselves patriots. But you very rarely hear them call an African American or a minority who has served this country in uniform a patriot. They call everybody that wants to go against the government patriots. Let that marinate while I go through these messages. Delusional. John Cheney. Yes, he is. He's very delusional. Willis Cheney. I think Mr. Smith was trying to avoid the stereotypes about Black/Democratic Party. Sounds like he's lost. I also think he's doing all this talking now in hopes a hush payoff. It won't work. You got a point. You got a very good point. Ooh, James Battle. Fonnie Willis should decline to testify in front of Congress. It's just going to be a circus with the likes of Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz. Yeah, they're talking about they want to subpoena her and all this kind of stuff. And you know what? They have no jurisdiction over her. So I don't even think she should even go up there. They can subpoena, but they have no jurisdiction over her that I know of. From what I've read, they don't have any jurisdiction. But we'll see how that turns out. And what James Battle said, she doesn't have time for the grandstanding and vitriol. Yes, and if you notice, here's one thing that we know to be true at this point. When Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz, all these Republicans want to call somebody up to testify in front of them, they don't want the truth. They just want a grandstand. They want to make it. They're playing to one person who is this audience, and that's Donald Trump. They want him to think that because they're all jockeying for position right now, that if he gets elected, they're looking for positions right now. They're looking for positions. They're looking for a way to be in the cabinet. They're looking for any way to maintain power within the Republican Party. Has nothing to do with the facts, has nothing to do with what's going on. It all has to do with the fact that now that we're in charge, we're going to do anything and everything we can to you because of what you did to our former president. And think about it. 2-time impeached, 91-time indicted, former president. Who also, let's go here. Everybody wants to concentrate on Fonnie Willis and her relationship with Mr. Wade. Let's not forget Stormy Daniels, which is the case that they're working on right now in New York. But let's not forget about Stormy Daniels. He actually paid off a porn star that he was having an affair with because he is married. She was the first lady at one time. Now, mind you, this happened before he got in office, but let's be real. But we're concentrating on Fonnie Willis and a consensual relationship, two grown-ass people. Let's wrap up Mr. Smith. So it says, during a CNN interview after the incident, Smith said he opted to de-escalate the situation rather than defend himself against the group, and that he felt the confrontation could have become deadly. He opted to de-escalate the situation rather than defend himself against the group. I'm going to try to pull up some of these videos of Mr. Smith and find out what he said before this incident happened, as far as being a Republican and everything like that. I'm curious to see what his agenda was before he realized that who he really is. And this is what he said. I'm looking at soulless, dead-eyed white supremacists that, by the way, I felt these people could have bashed my brains in had they gotten the chance, he said. I deal with these people in real life, and I know for a fact where they're coming from. I know that a lot of these people have infiltrated these conservative organizations from top to bottom. So the reality is you already knew what you was walking into, but you still chose to walk in there. Now that they, didn't embrace you, now you're mad. Brian Hoodie finally can decline just like Alvin Bragg did. Yeah, she ain't got to go up there. They don't have no jurisdiction over her. They have nothing to do with her. She's the Fulton County District Attorney. That's not federal. That's state. But what I will tell you is keep an eye on Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp is the one that took the call about the find me 11,781 votes. I need one more vote. That's him that took the call. She made him testify. Fonnie Willis did. And now he's going to try anything in his power to try to get the case dismissed too. Now that the judge said what he had to say in his ruling. Pay attention, keep an eye on it. That's all I'm going to tell you. Keep an eye on it, keep an eye on it, keep an eye on it. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. We've talked about this many times on here, but there's something that we need to really touch on, and we need to really open our eyes and talk to our young folks. We need to talk to those who are trying to maybe make a move to another state or anything like that. They need to pay attention to what's going on around them, and not just for I want some warm weather or anything like that. And we're going to get into what's going on in Florida right now in a minute. But here's the thing: diversity, equity, inclusion. And y'all have heard me say this before. Is DEI, or organizational frameworks which seek to promote the fair treatment and full participation of all people, particularly groups who have historically been underrepresented or subject to discrimination on the basis of identity or disability. These three notions, diversity, equity, inclusion, together represent three closely linked values which organizations seek to institutionalize through DEI framework. Diversity refers to the presence of variety within the organizational workforce, such as identity politics. It includes gender, culture, ethnicity, religion, disability, class, etc., age, or opinion. Equity refers to concepts of fairness and justice, such as fair compensation and substantive equality. More specifically, equity usually also includes a focus on societal disparities and allocating resources and decision-making authority to groups that have historically been disadvantaged, and taking into consideration a person's unique circumstances, adjusting treatment accordingly so that the end result is equal. Finally, inclusion refers to creating an organizational culture that creates an experience where all employees feel their voices will be heard and a sense of belonging and integration. DEI is most often used to describe certain training efforts, such as diversity training. Though DEI is best known as a form of corporate training, it also finds implementation within many types of organizations, such as within academia, schools, and hospitals. Now, I wanted to reread that again because I know we've talked about DEI over and over and over again, but I think it's been minimized. And I'll say it this way, Natai Boyd, good morning, appreciate you. I'll say it this way. I want to reiterate what DEI stands for because I think it's just been minimized to initials, DEI. But there's more to it than just the initials. There's more to it than diversity, equity, inclusion. It's more to it where we need to be speaking on what it means rather than what they want it to represent. We need to be speaking on what it means rather than what they want it to represent. which is along with affirmative action and things like that. But I bring this up this morning because Republican lawmakers, here we go again, have introduced hundreds of bills this session to quell diversity and inclusion programs at colleges, industries, and the government. Republican lawmakers in more than 30 states have introduced or passed more than 100 bills to either restrict or regulate diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in the current legislative session. 100. They're trying to eliminate piece by piece by piece. Following the murder of George Floyd in May of 2020 and the national protest that followed, schools, companies, and individuals sought more solutions to become more racially and socially inclusive. But those efforts have invited a backlash, with conservative media outlets, politicians, lawyers, and social media influencers now countering DEI efforts in several industries, from higher education institutions to airlines. In the months since the Supreme Court restricted race-conscious college admissions, groups have filed complaints and lawsuits against minority-owned businesses with equity initiatives. And I want you to think about this. And I talked about this, and I wish I would have pulled it up on my thing, give you a reminder. But there's a guy named Ed Bloom, millionaire. But he's the one that went after the Fearless Fund. The Fearless Fund is the three college-educated women, master's degree holding women, that were giving grants to African-American women to start businesses and get themselves together and go on. Edward Bloom went out and he sued them because they said it was discrimination because they were only doing it for Black women. This is where the DEI conversation comes into play, where they're trying to eliminate these things within the structure of what's going on in this country with jobs, college entrance fee. College entrance, all these different things you can think about where DEI can be a factor in whether you get into a college. They want to deliver. They want to get rid of that. One of the main locations that DEI has become a hotbed is Florida. And now, after all this time of us dealing with this DEI and how they're minimizing it and trying to take it away, and I'm going to stop saying DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, the NAACP spoke out the other day. And they're urging student athletes to reconsider Florida colleges after state eliminates DEI programs. Before I get into that, James Battle's got a comment. They want us to believe that over 400 years of oppression is completely fixed in 60 years. It is not. It is not. No, nowhere close. But let me keep going here. I had a thought, but I'm gonna let it go. Let me read this again because I'm torn on this. It says the NAACP urges student athletes to reconsider Florida colleges after state eliminates DEI programs. What about the regular student? What about the everyday, normal African-American student that is wanting to choose a school and college? Is he not, or is she not? Should they not feel the same way as far as going there because of the elimination of DEI? See, this is where I guess for me, when we start only concentrating on the athletes, and I understand, let me pause for a minute, because I understand the amount of money that these African-American athletes bring to these colleges and universities. I understand all that. And that's where the money is made. College football. One of the biggest is college football. But for the NAACP to urge student athletes, it should be any and all African-American students, in my opinion. Because if we're going to make a statement, we need to make it across the board. Because here's the thing. We always concentrate on the athletes that bring the money for the football. But we have students, African-American students that are going to these schools in Florida to become doctors, to become lawyers, to become all the different things that we think of that we need in our communities, but we're not telling them not to go. We're only telling the athletes not to go. Now, maybe that's just a start. I don't know. But I think we need to step back for a minute and look at it and say, you know what? No African-Americans that are about to enroll in college go to any of the universities in Florida unless it's an HBCU. Let's start there. Let's start looking at the fact that we all want to support HBCUs until it's time to go and enroll. We want to say, oh, we wear the Howard shirt or the Morgan State jacket or any of the things you can think about. But then when it's time for our kids to go and enroll in school, we send them to a PWI. I'm not saying it's wrong, but what I am saying is we got to look at the big picture that if Florida is doing this and we feel that strongly in Florida, then we need to stop anybody from enrolling in those schools, not just the student athletes. And as I said, I understand the money factor of what they're bringing to the football program, but you still got to pay tuition to get into the school if you're an everyday person like me who is not an athlete going to the school. This is one of those things where, and I'll go back. Do you remember when people were saying boycott Gucci or boycott Fendi or Louis Vuitton? I can't remember, when one of them designers. And then we had people speak out and say, I like my Gucci. I'm not gonna stop wearing Gucci because y'all upset. That's our mentality. That's our mentality. The NAACP, I'm glad they spoke out, but let's look at it from a wider view. Why not tell all African American students that are planning to enroll in college not to enroll in Florida? Some of our best of the best could be enrolling in a program in Florida, in one of those schools. But we're more concerned about the athlete. Now, as I said, I understand the money that the athletics bring. But if someone's getting a full ride to a Florida, University of Florida, for football or basketball or anything like that, and Emmitt Smith spoke out about his alma mater, that he doesn't think they should enroll there because of them eliminating DEI. But at the same time, we, as I mentioned, it's been over 100 DEI initiatives being blocked in over 30 states. Right now, we're only talking about Florida. What about Delaware? What about Utah? What about these other places that we may not be as prominent, but are offering our guys scholarships to go to school there? I know we have to start somewhere to make an impact, but we got to look at the whole bigger picture of it all. We've been concentrating on Florida for the last 3-4 years with everything that's going on in Florida under Ron DeSantis. We haven't changed anything yet. And now that he didn't get the presidential nomination, Florida's probably in a tizzy right now. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better. So when we talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what they're eliminating, the NAACP president said this is not about politics, the letter read. It's about the protection of our community, the progression of our culture, and most of all, it's about your education and your future. The letter was signed by the NAACP National Board of Directors Chairman Leon W. Russell and NAACP President and CEO Derek Johnson. Last year, Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill prohibiting the use of state funds for any DEI programs. The University of Florida responded in March by closing the office of Chief Diversity Officer, eliminating 13 full-time DEI positions and 15 administrative appointments, and ending DEI-focused contracts with outside vendors. Other state schools like North Florida and Florida International also have shut down DEI programs. James Battle, I think they just want to get the most immediate impact, and by athletes not attending these major colleges will do that. I agree with you on this and have been saying it for years, but understand where they're coming from. No, I understand. But I guess I should have put it in the perspective of, my thought process would be not just concentrate on the athletes. Maybe we should concentrate on all students that decide to go there. So I appreciate you clearing that up for me, because maybe I should have put my thought process in there. Appreciate you, Battle. Appreciate you. You're always there to help me, bro. And it also says, while it is our duty to spread awareness and encourage action around these egregious assaults, we also recognize that protests can come at a price. The sad reality is, for many Black student athletes, collegiate sports may be their sole opportunity at achieving the upward mobility necessary to propel them into their rightful places in society. It is unclear how awareness of the debate over DEI might affect current or prospective student athletes who are considering powerhouses like Florida and Florida State, especially at a time when name, image, and likeness deals have become so integral to building rosters. But a growing campaign could hinder those schools' recruiting efforts. Florida great and Pro Football Hall of Famer Emmitt Smith asked minority athletes at his alma mater to be aware and vocal about the decision. Johnson took it a step further Monday. Florida's rampant anti-Black policies are a direct threat to the advancement of our young people and their ability to compete in a global economy. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are paramount to ensuring equitable and effective educational outcomes. The value Black and other college athletes bring to large universities is unmatched. If these institutions are unable to completely invest in those athletes, it's time they take their talents elsewhere. So let me ask this question, and I'm going to ask it, cynically. I'm going to ask it cynically. I'm going to be cynical at this point. We have been talking about how our athletes go to these colleges and the colleges profit off them. How much money the coaches make, like Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski was making millions of dollars. Vince, wasn't it Nick Saban down in Alabama was making millions of dollars. And I seen an article the other day, I seen an interview with Nick Saban the other day, and I'm kind of digressing, but y'all hang with me. And in this article, they were asking him why he decided to retire. And one of the things he brought up was about the NIL, name, image, and likeness. And he said it was starting to ruin football. It was starting to ruin college athletics. It was starting to ruin. But he never had a problem with anything that was going on with these athletes before they started making money. Let's just cut to the chase. Nick Saban made millions and millions and millions of dollars coaching on the sideline. He's not running the football. He's not throwing the football. He's not having his body beat up. He is not one injury away from never being able to walk again or anything like that by standing on the sideline as a coach. But he was making millions and millions of dollars to coach these young men. And the reason he said, part of the reason he said he retired, it was because the name, image, and likeness and the portal, when allowing people to be able to choose when they want to leave from one school to another and everything, caused problems within the structure of college football. No, what it did was it gave power. It gave power back to the student athlete to make choices that are going to benefit him long term. And because of that, a lot of these coaches that are against the NIL have a problem because some of these athletes are making millions of dollars off their name, image, and likeness, and they don't like that. Let's just cut through the chase and call it what it is. If you ever recognize, whenever we're out there and wherever we're doing sports and we're benefiting the owners of the NFL, the owners of the Major League Baseball, the owners of all these organizations, or we're benefiting the colleges to have these big stadiums and these coaches to make millions and millions of dollars a year coaching. Once the athletes started making money off their own self, name, image, and likeness, look at the change in what these coaches' mentalities become. See, as long, and I'm going to say it this way, and y'all can at me if you want, but I'm just going to break it down like this. As long as the college fields and the college courts are structured in a plantation environment, everything is fine. But once those on the plantation who are supposed to perform every Saturday or every Friday night or whenever they play their games, as long as they're performing in within the parameters of what we want them to perform, no harm, no foul. But once they start getting paid for what they do out there on that field because of who they are and what they look like, and they're using their name, image, and likeness to profit off of who they are and what their abilities are, now it's an issue. When nobody was being paid other than the colleges for the commercials they did, when nobody was being paid for when they showed them for March Madness or for the championship game of college and everything, nobody had a problem because the colleges were benefiting off of their name, image, and likeness, not the player. Now that the player is benefiting, it becomes an issue. So when we get into this DEI, name, image, and likeness, this is it's all inclusive. It's all inclusive. We just have to step back and find out where these little pieces all come together in this puzzle. Because I guarantee this is not by chance. The DEI and affirmative action and enrollment in the schools and everything is not by chance when name, image, and likeness came along. It's not by chance. I'm going to dig, and I hope you dig, find out where they all connect, because somehow, some way, oh, they connect. Trust me, they connect some way. Because anytime you find us benefiting or profiting off of who we are, case in point, Ed Bloom with the Fearless Fund, these women were pouring back into people that look like them so they can start businesses. They sued them. They sued them. Not because of anything they were doing wrong, because of the visuals and the impact of what they were doing to help people that look like them. That's simple. So when we talk about these student athletes going to Florida, hell, we need to be talking to student athletes in any state where they've initiated this get rid of DEI and start telling them, hey, if they still have DEI at the HBCUs, go to an HBCU. Because here's the thing. We were all happy. We were all celebrating when Deion Sanders decided he was going to coach at a HBCU, Jackson State. We were all, I mean, let's be real. We walking around with Jackson State shirts and Jackson State hats. Some of y'all ain't never know what Jackson State was before Deion Sanders went there. I haven't heard anything about Jackson State since Deion Sanders left. Have you? But I've heard a whole lot about Colorado. Now, you can be a fan of Deion Sanders and where he goes. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the energy that we had pouring into that HBCU because we had a figurehead there that we respected. The HBCU didn't change. The person over top of the football program changed. And we changed right along with it. What do we do? What do we do? Just want to throw it out there. We have to look at the big picture. DEI being eliminated from these places. It's not going to stop here. It's going to keep going, keep going, keep going. And this election season, depending on who gets in office, who gets elected, you're going to see a whole lot of other things eliminated. They just ain't talking about it yet. Let's go. Mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul is 2024. First quarter is almost over. We 3 months in to 2024. How many of y'all keeping your resolutions? Huh? How many of y'all still on your resolutions or your lifestyle changes? You know, we had the common denominator is health this year. How many of y'all are concentrating on those? Making sure you're healthy in all aspects of what it's about. The common denominator of health. Three months in. It's not saying that you can't get back on track. Just get back on track. Keep doing what you're doing. So today's mind, body, and soul is very simple. It came to my attention for something that I'm dealing with right now. And it's called, the quote today is, stay the course. Stay the course. And y'all have heard me say this many times. If I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self or 25-year-old self something, what would I tell them? I say, stay the course. And I had to say that to myself this week because we're 3 months in. A lot of things going on in the world, a lot of things going on in our personal lives and everything. There's going to be things that pitfalls, there's going to be roadblocks, there's going to be all kind of things that come your way. But one thing we got to do is remember to stay the course. See, you always heard this cliche. A setback is a setup for a comeback. A setback is a setup for a comeback. Stay the course. When a roadblock comes in your way, you may have to go over it, you may have to go around it, you may have to go under it. Stay the course. Don't let it take you off of what your main goal is. And I think that's where some of us get caught up in the fact of, if this didn't happen today, I'll just throw my hands up. If we're 3 months into the year, I made these resolutions, I made these lifestyle changes, and they haven't come to fruition yet, you got 9 more months. It doesn't end just because you're 3 months in. Goals are meant to be adjusted to situations. Don't change the goal. Change the process in which you're trying to accomplish the goal. Keep pushing forward. Stay the course. And I'm not trying to put anybody's information out there, but I had a buddy I talked to yesterday, man. I haven't talked to him in a minute. And we were talking, and he's been going through a rough time. And I sat back, and after I hung up with him and I listened to everything he had to say, and he was asking me some advice and everything. And then as I'm riding and I'm thinking about our conversation and what I told him, I had to ask myself, when you give out advice or when somebody asks you something, are you adhering to what you tell them in your own life? 50%. Probably 50% of what I tell somebody else, I instill in my own life to maintain what I'm doing, what I'm supposed to be doing. Stay the course. Stay the course. And I say that because, there's a lot of things that we have going on in our lives that may seem like roadblocks, as I said, or it could seem like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. But you're only 3 months into this year. If you would have stopped every time a roadblock came in your way, where would you be? If every time trials and tribulations come up, or something happened, or you lost a job, or money wasn't right, if you just stopped, where would you be? Perseverance. Keep on keeping on. Because sometimes we just want to throw our hands up and say, I'm tired. I'm done. I can't do this no more. At our jobs, we get frustrated and everything. Where are you going? You're not going to leave a job unless you have another job, in most cases, unless you're retiring or something like that. But you find ways to work through. You find ways to push through. You find ways to persevere. Stay the course. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't let these setbacks hold you back. Continue pushing on, continue doing what you need to do, know what you are. And if you have to get on the board, get on your vision board and rearrange some things or rearrange your goals and everything to get a fresh start, do that. Don't just take the board down, readjust the board. Your life is not bad because you have setbacks. Your life is bad when you choose not to fight back. That's where it all comes into play. Stay the course, continue to do what you need to do. Life is not complicated. We make it complicated. Keep pushing forward. Keep pushing forward. I appreciate everybody tuning in today. Hopefully everybody got something out of the show today. Faye Jackson, forward ever, backward never. There you go. Forward ever, backward never. Appreciate that, bro. But hope everybody got something from the show today. I got another show next week. We'll be on, and then I'm going to have to take a small hiatus. I don't like put my business out there, but I'm going to let y'all know that because I'm going to ask for your prayers. Having hip replacement surgery, left hip, March 28th. So I'll be out of commission on the radio on the show for a little bit, probably about maybe a week or two. I'm going to come back because I ain't got to run or nothing to be on here. So, but I'll keep you posted. But next week will be the last one for a minute. Probably maybe miss a show, but I'll be posting everything. But keep me in your prayers. And like I said, we'll be back on next week. I got some good topics we're going to come back with again next week. But as I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely, keep your faith in God. I'll see y'all again next week. I love y'all, and I'm out. Peace.